Hi everyone, it's Roger and James here from the What's on Disney Plus podcast. In this week's episode, we're going to be talking about what we're looking forward to watching on Disney Plus in May. We're also going to be talking about the Thor Love and Thunder trailer, talking about what we've been watching on Disney Plus, and also having a discussion about kind of the streaming world right now with all the stuff that's been going on with Netflix and CNN. And I figured it would be a good opportunity to have a little bit of a broader discussion about streaming. But if you haven't already done so, make sure you hit that subscribe button here on YouTube. You can also subscribe on audio platforms, including iTunes, Spotify, etc. Go check us out over at whatsondisneyplus.com. Join our Facebook group where we've got over 200,000 members, and you can also find us on social media. So with that, let's jump into it. So we've had the list come in for May for the UK and also for the United States. We'll kind of go through the US one. I mean, it won't take very long. And we'll pick out some things while we're going on there. The UK one, I'll just pick out some of the highlights because, as per usual, there's a lot of stuff. So let's kick things off on Wednesday, May the 4th. There will be a Disney Gallery, The Book of Boba Fett behind-the-scenes special, which, not surprised by that, but I think that's actually a good drop for May the 4th. I mean, it would have been nice to have The Bad Batch or something a bit more interesting than that, but it's still okay.
Yeah, we already know when Obi-Wan is coming out, and that would have been the big one that people would have been expecting.
Yeah, and ironically, the thing I'm more excited about is the finale of Moon Knight, which drops on May the 4th. I'm just really looking forward to that, to see how all this puts together. We're also getting season 18, A Life Below Zero in the US, though hopefully that arrives, because I'm sure I've said that before and it hasn't turned up. Which seems to be a common thing with these ones. Then on Wednesday the 11th, so nothing on Friday that week, you're then getting the assembled episode about the making of Moon Knight, which should be a lot of fun. The Quest, a brand new reality series, which is just, I'm still really struggling with this series to be something about it. It's a bit weird.
We talked about it previously, so
Yeah.
there's not much else to say.
No,
it has potential to be interesting to younger audiences. I think most of us in the older audience groups are kind of scratching our head and a bit bewildered, but I could definitely see as a child wanting to do something, at least what they describe for the Quest. Whether or not to pull it off.
Yeah. I mean, I'm hoping as well they start advertising a bit more, because we're only about 3 weeks away. And it seems like, if it looks like it's cost a lot of money, so you look like you'd want to kind of promote it a little bit. Also, some new library content dropping that day, including Just Like Me seasons 1 and 2, Myra, a Royal Detective season 2, Something Bit Me, some new episodes of The Chicken Squad, and season 2 of The Wizard of Paws. Then on Friday, the 13th of May, so Friday the 13th, you're getting Sneakerella, a new movie, which is kind of a new modern version of Cinderella with sneakers, but with a role reversal. Not gonna lie, I'm gonna watch it because it's on Disney Plus. But if it was on any other platform, I'd be avoiding it like the plague. it just looks like meh. I mean, did you watch that Cinderella that they did on Amazon? That was
no, I did not. I mean, I'll watch Sneakerella. I don't have quite as negative, but honestly, in other situations, I wouldn't be watching it.
Yeah. Then on Wednesday the 18th, we're getting some new episodes of Alice Wonderland Bakery. That Italian Disney series that was supposed to come out next week has been pushed back a couple of weeks. I'm not even going to try and pronounce it, because if you saw the video of me trying to pronounce this after 18 attempts, it was just like, yep, no, I just can't do it. And then Secrets of the Zoo season 5. Then on Friday, May the 20th, getting Shook, which was originally going to be a Disney Channel, a Disney original, and then it got moved over to the Disney Channel, and it's sat on the Disney Channel for a year over there. Got Sophia Wilde from High School Musical in that one. And then the big one, and I'm going to be honest, this is the thing I'm probably more excited about than, well, maybe a little bit below the Moon Knight finale, but Chippendale Rescue Rangers, the new movie. There's something about this movie which is just really, I'm just excited about something that's taking characters that I loved as a kid. The trailer didn't make it look awful, and I don't know. There's something about this movie which I just want to watch it. I can't wait to watch that one. That's actually really high on my. And I would, again, this is if this was in the cinema, I would be going and seeing it. This is the thing for me. I would be going and seeing that even if it was in the cinema.
Yeah, and going complete opposite direction. I grew up with the Rescue Rangers too. I love the Rescue Rangers from childhood and the Disney afternoon block. But the trailer for me was the exact opposite. I hated that trailer. And honestly, well, I'll watch it for this, but based on the trailer, that would be a hard pass for me.
I think because the fact that it does look so different from the series, I like it, and it's a bit it's kind of got like a humor side of like Deadpool, and it's aware of itself, and it's oh, I don't know, it looks complete. It's completely different. It's not Chippendale Rescue Rangers that we had as a kid. This is a modern, like I say, it's not a reboot, it's a comeback, but it very much doesn't feel part of the original story, and I like that. I just like the idea that, you know, instead of like ruining it, it's like, no, they can't ruin it because this is something completely separate and it's live action, and yeah, it just looks a lot of fun.
I never really subscribed to the idea of new content making old content worse or something like that. There are a couple of extreme situations, but like, even if this is absolutely awful, it wouldn't change my opinion of the cartoon growing up. I know some people do have that, though.
We lived through the Transformers Beast Wars, which was dreadful when that came out. Also, we lived through Star Wars: The Phantom Menace and the Ewoks movies. You know, things can come back.
See, I've never actually seen any Transformers series or show for any significant amount of time. Like, I've seen episodes here and there, but the movies, the show, I haven't really watched them.
Yeah, see, being that 80, I had to wait, and I keep looking at these Transformer toys and thinking, no, do not.
So for me, it would be Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That was the one that I grew up with, and probably irritated the heck out of my parents with.
Yeah, it is funny. I love them too. I mean, I was a full-on ninja, but we weren't allowed to call it ninja over here. It was Hero Turtles. But nevertheless, let's move on. On Friday, May the 27th, we're getting 2 episodes of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Interesting, they call it part 1 and part 2. So rather than chapters and stuff, they're calling it something different.
Trying to give it a little bit extra like oomph to it, I guess, because part 1 sounds more important, more formal. Very
strange that they're doing it on the Friday. I mean, I know they got Star Wars Celebration that week. Whether or not they're going, I don't know. I still wouldn't be too surprised if it shifts to Fridays right through June. I still think that is something that they're going to end up doing. Stay away from Miss Marvel, but also we're getting a new National Geographic documentary, We Feed People, by Ron Howard, which is all about a chef, Jose Andres, and his non-profit World Central Kitchen. And it's been around for a while, but that one's finally coming out. Plus, we're getting Bad Boys, just not the Will Smith movie, which is one of my favorite films. No, we're getting an ESPN documentary. That one really did kind of go, is that Sony? Like, no, it's got to be. And then I found there was an ESPN documentary. It's like, yeah, that's it.
And my first reaction was that it'd be the movie Bad Guys, which is just in theaters here now in America, animated movie. Don't know anything else about it, but it's like, that's not a Disney movie. Why would that be here?
Yeah, so it's not Bad Boys. Then we're getting another ESPN documentary, D. Wade, Life Unexpected, about some basketball people. Apparently in the video I said Dr. Wade because of how I read it. I haven't got a clue who he is. To be honest, you could have the entire NFL team. Well, you could have the entire NFL and the entire NBA in front of me, and I wouldn't be able to pick one person out unless Shaq is in it.
Shaq would be easy to pick out of most crowds. Just in general.
I honestly know nothing about those sports, so I wouldn't know any of them. We're also getting some National Geographic documentaries: Hubble's Cosmic Journey and Mission Pluto. So still a very, very light month for the US. Literally it feels like Chippendale Rescue Rangers, Sneakerella, Obi-Wan Kenobi, that We Feed People, Quest. It's the originals, the library content. It's just I don't know. I'm sure I'm wondering if it's something to do with the international launch coming up at the end of May, beginning of June, because nobody's really, even the US, even like the UK and the Australians, most of the stuff that's being added is already available in other countries. So it's like, I don't know. There's not a lot being programmed into Disney Plus at the minute, and it's
yeah.
we're on to like month 4 of this year, just really bad months.
But it's also going to be part of the result of COVID preventing them from being able to create much in the way of
Mm.
original content the last couple of years. We're
Yeah.
starting to see that drought effect kick in. I mean, even with Moon Knight, like no matter how much we're enjoying that one, there are times when you can look at it and go, oh yeah, there's some COVID stuff preventing them from like using big crowd scenes and things like that a lot of the time.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was talking as you do with the cinematographer of Moon Knight, because we've got some interviews coming up this week, and COVID was a big part of it. Like because they're all like wearing screens and couldn't see stuff, and they had to think a little bit more about that whole process. And as you said, very noticeable that there's no indoor scenes. I mean, even that scene when they were in the restaurant, you can see they were spaced out. But yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things that I think it covers it quite well on Moon Knight, but you can definitely sense that feeling of the crowd would have been bigger without it.
Yeah, I mean, we'd been in the COVID lockdowns or whatever you want to call them for quite a while when Moon Knight was filming. So they had their techniques down a lot better than say like the reshoots for WandaVision, where it's very obvious that they're very carefully spaced apart and not standing close to each other. And some of the other ones that are shot then, and even just like regular TV, I'll bring in the CW DC shows. You watch the shows that were coming out right at the beginning of COVID, and you're like, yeah, you guys are having a hard time with this, aren't you? But more recent seasons, like Superman and Lois, you can tell that they figured out what they could do and what they couldn't do.
Well, I always think like back with like Doogie Kamealoha MD, where they pretty much filmed everything outside, but like a couple of scenes, you could really see that difference.
Or like Big Shot, where they're
like,
we released bees into the gymnasium, so you can't have the basketball game in the gymnasium. Like, oh my god.
Yeah, that at least I didn't mind that one. That one was all right. I think it was more the High School Musical where they just cancelled the final stage performance. It was a bit more like, yeah, that didn't work.
It's been interesting seeing what directors and writers have come up with as their excuses or their ways of making it happen. And just like any restriction on storytelling, sometimes you will get really, really inventive things, and other times you will get like writers who just clearly did not know how to write their way out of it, maybe through no fault of their own, but just like, yeah, you weren't up for this task.
No, it is funny how this works. Let's shift gears now and talk about the UK list. So it has all the same Disney Plus originals that the US is landing on the same time. So I'll pick out some highlights. So we're getting new episodes pretty much weekly of The Resident Season 5. We're also getting NCIS Season 19 episodes, Our Kind of People, The Great North Season 2, Bob's Burgers Season 2, Family Guy Season 20. Plus, we're also getting like American Crime Story Seasons 1 and 2. So I want to watch Season 2 because I've never seen that one. Snowfall Season 4. We're getting new episodes of The Kardashians every week, which turns out to be one of the biggest series. I mean, they pretty much said it's the biggest series on Hulu for a debut, on Star Plus, and they even said on Disney Plus. Now on Variety, they said that it was the biggest Star original, but the actual press announcement just said biggest series debut, and I'm like, I think this is probably, I think it wouldn't surprise me internationally if the Kardashians was actually bigger than the Marvel and Star Wars. A lot of people are like, no, it wouldn't. Like, I think there's a lot more people watch. It really so funny because every time I bring up the Kardashian series, people, the comments are just horrendous, and it's like it's the biggest show on the on Disney Plus, and it's like there's a much bigger audience of people that just don't talk about it. It's really, but I wouldn't be at all surprised because I think there's a lot more people like parents and mums and dads and stuff that watch it that have got Disney Plus that maybe wouldn't sign in for the Marvel shows and stuff. So it's a big success for Disney Plus so far.
Yeah, I'm not even remotely surprised, and I do fall in the camp of it probably is the biggest show on Disney Plus internationally or Hulu in the States. It, as I said before, it's not a show that I have any intention of supporting, but it would be very, very foolish to underestimate how popular it is. There's a reason people watch it, and there's a reason that it gets talked about. And Disney put a very big amount of effort into making sure that people knew where to watch it.
It's one of the few like the way they advertise it as well, like even on all social media, like they mention all free streaming services. They're very clear and precise. They know they've got an audience everywhere, and they're being very clear about where it is. We've got major national television stations running ad commercials for the Kardashians. It's on me. I watched it with my wife again this week. This is a series that we watched together. Great. This is, and it's nice. Like I sat there. Shall we watch the Kardashians, darling? It's like, I've got to watch it.
But that's the thing, is there are lots and lots of people who have that reaction of, this is the I Love Lucy or the, you sit down and you watch the show because this is the show that you have to keep up with. And as much as we love the Marvel and the Star Wars movies, a lot of people are willing to go, hey, I'll wait until the whole thing's out and watch it at that point. Or I don't need to sit down and watch it the day it comes out. It's easy to forget we do kind of live in a bit of an echo chamber here where everybody that you talk to is excited. But once you get outside of that, it's like, oh, yeah, The Mandalorian. I saw a couple episodes. That was really good. That's the more typical. And whether or not it would annoy you to realize that the Kardashians do generate buzz and people do talk about them, which means you've got to be there and up with what's going on with it.
Yeah, no, it's good. So I'm enjoying it. We're also getting new episodes of This Is Us season 6 every Thursday as well, along with the Kardashians. Some other quick things that are coming out. Here in the UK, we're getting How I Met Your Father season 1. So we're getting the whole season of that on the 11th of May. The finale I think comes out on May the 4th for like US on Hulu, Canada, and Australia. And for some reason, like Ireland is getting it weekly. I am so far. I am now into mid-season 9 of How I Met Your Mother. I might actually even make and got the whole lot watched. Even though I have seen the first 4 episodes of How I have managed somehow to binge my way through 9 seasons of How I Met Your Mother over the last couple of months. So I'm doing quite well on that one.
Speaking of shows that at the time you had to keep up with to know what's going on, because that was super popular.
I must admit, I am getting bored of it now. I'm at that point where it's just like, can we just get? I think this whole 9 season, they're at a wedding. It's like, can we just meet them all? Very odd, yeah. Nevertheless, some other highlights we have got. Just picking up here. Some movies like Goodbye Christopher Robin, which is one I've been wanting to watch for a while. The original Buffy the Vampire Slayer movie, Bruce Almighty. We're also getting Life and Beth season 1 on the 18th of May. So we're getting the whole load of that one. I don't know again why that one got delayed for the UK compared to the other regions. Also, what I'm looking forward to, Grownish season 4 is dropping on the same day. We're getting the whole season. So I've already seen seasons 1 to 3. I'm looking forward to catching up on that one. So that's another show that I want to watch. Also getting the first episode of American Dad season 18 on that day, with new episodes dropping weekly. New season of Mayans and Sea season 3 will drop the same day. Moving on from there, May the 20th, obviously we've got Chippendale Rescue Rangers. We're also getting The Transporter and a brand new Disney Plus sort of Star/Hulu original, The Valet. As a new movie that'll be international and on Hulu. The Valet, that looks kind of interesting. A comedy, about a valet who has to pretend to be a Hollywood celebrity's wife. Yeah, it looks stupid. It looks fun. I'll give that one a go.
Wife or husband? I thought the valet was the boy in this case.
The valet is pretending to be the boyfriend, I think.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. So, typical Odd Couple setup. Although, and then what was it? The Transporter, is that the movie or the show?
That's the movie with Jason Statham. It's actually one of those kind of things of like those it's just like a classic 80s or 90s action movie, just like in the noughties. It's completely over the top.
It had some fun action sequences.
I watched Speed again over the weekend because it got put onto Disney Plus last week, and I was like, I forgot how much I love that movie, except for the ramp bit at the end. It's just stupid.
Well, yeah, but they knew what they were doing when they did that.
Also, watched Le Mans 66, the Ford versus Ferrari, because that got added. Really enjoyed that movie. Me and my wife, we watched that last Sunday. This is what I do like about these Friday movie drops. Quite often we'll watch some of the ones on the weekend and stuff, so it's cool.
I thought that was a really good movie too. Definitely recommend it for anyone who's got it available on one of the platforms that they're on. There's loads of National Geographic stuff dropping for it. Also getting all 12 seasons of NYPD Blue. A new Disney Plus original or Star original on the 25th of May. Wu-Tang season 1, I think it's already on Hulu. I think season 3 is coming up, so we're a little bit behind, but we're finally getting that one.
Some movies dropping on the 27th, along with Obi-Wan Kenobi. We're getting Daredevil, JFK. It looks like we're getting a number of Regency movies starting to drop now onto Disney Plus, like including The Negotiator, which are more like Warner Brothers movies, but obviously they got that deal to come in. Big Mamas, we're getting all three of the Big Mama movies, plus Jumper. But one of the series I'm really looking forward to on the 31st of May, and it'll be dropping around the world on Disney Plus and on Hulu in the United States, Pistol. And this is all 6 episodes, I think, of the behind this. It's not even, I said, like a drama series about, about the Sex Pistols. I'm looking. I'm kind of at that point. FX are making some great shows. This one's, I'm looking forward to that one. I think that one's going to be a bit of a highlight, I think, for May. And I like it's like, well, we're getting all of them at once, so that'll be a lot of fun. So there's a lot there, especially in the UK. I mean, I'm definitely going to throw like Grownish season 4, Pistol, How I Met Your Father. I'm going to give Life of Beth a go. I haven't tried that one out yet. We've got the Kardashians. This is just like nice selection, as I normally say with the UK one. We get a little bit more juicy stuff with all that Hulu stuff.
And I'm sure it was interesting seeing Daredevil pop up on the list again. Like, we just got Daredevil. Oh, yeah. It's that Daredevil.
I didn't mind though. I didn't mind it.
It just keep your expectations tempered, and it's perfectly fine. But it's by no means a particularly good one. But it's not nearly as bad as people remember. Plus, it had that fun Evanescence song at the end of it. But I know a lot of countries still haven't gotten the Netflix Daredevil and stuff, and
I believe that's coming in June. I think. I think I saw the Netherlands. I think they said that it was coming in June. So there was. I hope so. There must have been some issues, I think, with dubbing or something like that.
I just know that a lot of countries kind of feel left out or annoyed by the fact that it got pulled from Netflix in those countries and then did not get put on Disney Plus. So it's, if you're in one of these countries like the Netherlands, you currently can't see Daredevil or Luke Cage or Jessica Jones. And I wish that had not happened.
No, it's definitely kind of this line of like some of the stuff that they pull off. There's just no continuity going on with any of these releases. So there we go. So that is what's coming up in May on Disney Plus in the US, UK, and around the world. Let's shift gears now and do a little bit of news before we jump into one of the big topics of today. So we had the first trailer for Love and Thunder, which is coming out in July in cinemas. So expected to arrive on Disney Plus and maybe September, October time. The music with Guns N' Roses. I must have watched this trailer like 4 or 5 times. It was, there's something about this movie which is just, I'm really excited about it. I'm probably more excited about this one than Doctor Strange. I don't think it's just the humor, the fact it doesn't take itself seriously. It involves the Guardians. I don't know. This movie just looks so great.
Yeah, I only watched the trailer once, but I definitely could have watched it multiple times. But the main reason I didn't watch it multiple times was I'm already sold on this movie. I don't want to overexpose myself to it. I definitely am looking forward to it more than Doctor Strange, which is not to undersell excitement for Doctor Strange. I've already got my ticket for it. But this is the Marvel movie of the year that I'm looking forward to. It's based on a storyline that I love. It's got the Lady Thor coming into it, which, of course, some people decided. Hey, Natalie Portman looks like she really got prepared for that.
It just looks fun. I mean, we saw absolutely nothing in the movie that probably isn't probably from the first 5 minutes, other than like a little hint of Zeus. Whether or not Gore's going to turn up and something's going to happen there. Don't know. I just love the fact as well. Like he's like looking. Chris's eyes.
Thor, out of all of the MCU characters, Thor had like the biggest character shift, and I know some people weren't really happy about that with Ragnarok, where he went from his first 2 movie personality to the Ragnarok personality. But honestly, I just like they're just leaning into it right now. It's going all in.
It's just something it's that charisma, isn't it? There's something on that's it was funny because there's just something to me. There's just something about him that just pulls you in, and he's got the humor, he's got the smile, and I don't know. It is just that kind of thing of it really, and the expectation for this trailer was so high. So many people were excited for it and waiting for it because everyone's getting worried that we are. It's like they got a lot of other stuff dropping with Marvel over the next 8 weeks. There's a lot, between now and, it would be one thing to be sitting here going like Thor's coming out in July. Oh yeah, that's good. Okay, it's only like 8. What was it, about 10 weeks away, something like that. It's not that long, really, 10, 12 weeks.
It's not as long away as you think it is, right?
No, and then going, well, hold on a minute. I've got Doctor Strange, Miss Marvel, and Moon Knight still left to drop between then and now. So yeah,
and She-Hulk coming at some point after that, and it's going to be an incredible year for Marvel.
Yeah.
But yeah, this one looks like it's going to be just a lot of fun. My one concern, and I'm hoping will be unfounded, is I hope they don't overplay Peter and Thor's contention. Obviously, there was some of that in the trailer with the head coming into the scene and Quill being like, "Get out of the way! You're not who I'm talking about." It's a really funny interaction seeing them two. I just hope that doesn't become too much of the focus of the humor.
I have a feeling because they did lean into the idea that at some point they leave.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering they might even be in it only like the beginning of it, and then they leave Thor to do what he needs to with his own story with Korg and Lady Thor.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm in. This is going to be, again, this will be a 9 o'clock showing for me when it drops in the cinema. I'm sold.
To be honest, though, at this point, like Taika has, I could have just not watched this trailer entirely, and I'd still be like 100% confident, because between Ragnarok, What We Do in the Shadows, and more recently Our Flag Means Death, he has just been on a roll of great shows and great movies.
I'm probably at a point now where I think and I probably think this is probably like all of us now, where the Marvel Studios could drop a movie onto us like tomorrow, without any adverts, a black screen with a Marvel Studios Untitled, and it would probably be one of the biggest movies because everyone would be so intrigued about it. But they literally, I'm not counting Morbius because that didn't count as a proper Marvel movie.
MCU,
yeah. But I think we're at a point now where we have that trust, and so for me, Thor looks fantastic.
Yeah, and I think, like, a lot of people point to the Eternals and maybe to a lesser extent Black Widow not doing as well as they would have hoped, but these people are either intentionally discounting the COVID effect or just want it as part of their narrative that, oh no, it's a story about a woman superhero, so obviously it wasn't going to do it. It's like, no, it was literally the first movie that got people out of their houses to a movie theater for a very long time, but it still wasn't going to do as well as people thought. No. They could literally just take any character in the backlog right now. Yeah, this is Marvel's, Beetle comic, and there you go. That's it. Who's the Beetle? It's a random, random Spider-Man villain.
I think that ultimately, after all these movies and all these series, they've developed the trust, and that's ultimately, it's that kind of thing of, the MCU has become just as, you're in it. And I think the only trouble is it's like, it's hard to get new people in. But saying that, one of my friends recently went out for lunch and she said, "Oh, I watched the first Iron Man movie." And it's like, "Oh yeah, I liked it." Well, I kind of felt like we should get into the MCU. Like now she just gives regular updates to my wife, going, "Oh yeah, we just watched another one."
Conversely, you can also see how it'd be very intimidating to get into the MCU at this point. Like, every once in a while, my mom will be like, "Can you just give me a list of the ones that I should watch?" And just like, I could probably break it down to like the core ones, but they're up to 20 something movies at this point. If you really are just starting, have not watched any of them, or you watched your first one and now you want to get into it and see it more, there's a lot of watching, especially if you add in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Agent Carter, the Netflix shows and so on. Like, all right, how much time you got?
Yeah, it is tricky. My parents seem to be doing all right. They seem to be kind of slowly keeping up. But yeah, so there we go. So that's so let's shift over gears now. We're going to talk a little bit more about the sort of streaming side of things. But before we do that, I'm just going to do a quick bit of housekeeping. Big thank you to our supporters on Patreon and YouTube channel members. Thank you so much for your support. In what this does is by paying us a couple of bucks a month, you get early access to certain content, but also more importantly, you get to take part in the weekly Q&A. And more importantly than that, you support us kind of keeping up with all of our bills and stuff, and server costs and hosting fees and stuff. So big thank you to Sarah for at the executive level. Also to Jeremy, Adam, Martin, Dawn, Joshua, Bina, My VCR Still Works, Raphael, Ben, Mahmoud. We've also got Dave, Rookie Wright, Dana, and also Dan. While over on the on Patreon, sorry. We've also got Andrew, Elliot. We've got Jacob, Khalid, Red Mars Man. Thank you very much for all of your support, along with Aero G, Chris, Cody, Daniel, Darren, The Juice, and Lauren. Thank you so much for all of your support. And yeah, let's jump into it now. So this week has been a little bit of an interesting week for the streaming wars. Earlier this week, Netflix put out its quarterly, I don't think this is a quarterly, or it's gave out its latest results, and they were down hundreds of millions of subscribers. Instead of they were expecting like a 2 million subscriber growth, they were under. I mean, some of that could be put down to obviously taking people that were subscribed in Russia and taking them out of the account, but it was the first time they'd not had growth and they missed their target. The stock price plummeted. I mean, we're talking, I think it was like, we're talking billions. I think it was like 30 odd percent, maybe even more off the stock price dropped. I mean, we're talking people lost a lot of money. This was a massive shift, caused massive, it then caused a ricochet effect on all the different media platforms with streaming services. So Disney, Comcast, and Paramount, all their stocks sort of dropping, because the realization that there is a top cap on how many people are going to subscribe. And Netflix is starting to get to that point. And also, probably more importantly, with Netflix, people are starting to unsubscribe in larger numbers, because for a variety of reasons that we'll get into. But there's been a lot of talk over the last year or so, really, that Netflix's stock was actually valued too high, because it was being compared as a tech company against like Google and Apple, etc. When in actual fact, it was a media company, more like Disney. And that's why, I mean, its share price was like over $700 compared to like Disney was, I think, is like 170 or something like that. So there was a massive, massive difference in the stock price, and the stocks have dropped. And realization really for Netflix that they need to get some more revenue. So they're going to introduce an ads tier as well. I mean, they've been kind of against it for a while, but Netflix are going to go for this low cost option. They're also saying that they're going to have to cut the amount of content that they're creating. They've been creating too much content and spending too much money. The animation department looks like that's been the first one to have the big axe sweep across it. They've announced a load of stuff. And generally, the king Netflix has had a bloody nose and had an arm chopped off, because it really has just had. And I am not kidding. I went to my accountant's this week, and my accountant asked me what's going on with Netflix. And I got in the car, my dad went, what's going, and it's like, oh, this is like reaching beyond, because that thing of like, Netflix has been the king of streaming. And with that, things are moving along. My little dog's not liking that.
And they're annoying your dog too. Yeah.
Well, she certainly did not like Polar Bear, did you? You didn't like Polar Bear. But yeah, so I think just as a whole, sort of Netflix's host thing really of being the king really took a dive. And it's also, I'm wondering how this will affect other streamers. I think Disney Plus is going to be looking at what's going on here. They're all going to be looking at going, what's the upper tier? Because we know like Disney have been targeting like 240, 250 million subscribers, but is that the top? Is that the top end of what they're ever going to be able to get? There's only so many households that can actually subscribe. And this ever-ending chase of subscribers will eventually run out. And some of it, I think, was the sort of the shareholders and the analysts kind of pushing on stuff that wasn't really realistic. And then for that, it's just been like a market adjustment to where it should have been.
Well, that's a story as old as time with the stock market. I mean, that Netflix is just the latest victim of that. Infinite growth is just not possible, no matter the industry, but particularly in a subscription-based industry. And eventually you're going to hit a cap. But the stock market is built on showing increases, not year after year, but quarter after quarter, continual increases. And at some point, every company is going to hit that limit where he's like, there's nothing else to do. And frankly, it's really toxic, but what can you do about it at this point? And Netflix is more of a victim than anything else, I think, of that. But the other thing that's important to keep in mind, of course, when you compare Netflix to Peacock or Disney Plus or HBO Max, is that Netflix only is Netflix.
Yeah.
Once you get outside of what's on the streaming platform, there is no Netflix platform, right?
No.
They don't have other products. It is literally just the streaming. Whereas HBO, they've got all the Warner Brothers stuff. They're still releasing stuff in theaters. They've got the properties. They own properties. That's another major thing. Netflix doesn't actually own studios, which seems like it's smart on the surface, but then actually the more you dig into, you kind of that's not that great a thing because there's a lot of sharing around. Disney, of course, has the parks and all their brands everywhere. Netflix, I think, needs to kind of follow Amazon on this route, because Amazon we know as the big superstore in the cloud. It's the internet. I can go online and buy any book from anywhere in the world, any movie from anywhere in the world, et cetera, et cetera. But Amazon's money comes from their technology. It comes from AWS, the Amazon Cloud Services, that they powered some absurd amount of money of websites.
They power Disney Plus. When that went down, that affected them.
Yeah, AWS is huge. Netflix is actually in a decent position to leverage that. They have a product called Chaos Monkey, which is used for testing the resiliency of systems and being able to find weak points in systems so that you know what you have to fix. You're supposed to use it on your own systems to find the weak points. If they can find a way to build on that and start selling off these services to other tech companies, I think they'll find that revenue stream getting much better, which will then let them enhance their streaming services as well. They have options to them, but they cannot stay strictly streaming if they want to stay in the game.
This has always been that thing. I mean, we've been talking about it for years of Netflix lives or dies by its subscriber numbers, because that's literally all it's got. That is 99% of its revenue. And whereas when they were valued higher than Disney stuff, and you go, well, hold on a minute. Disney have got 6 theme parks. They've got a cruise line. They've got stores. They've got theatrical releases. They've got video games. They've got all kinds of stuff. Books. They got everything they could possibly do. And it's their diversity. So if one thing went down, they're still making money elsewhere, which showed during the pandemic. Of even though the parks are down, they had and that was definitely it. But it feels like we're coming out of the pandemic, and I think Pentalo, or the bike people, they were kind of in that same thing of they all had this big boost during the pandemic. Of course, now everyone's going back to normal and going back out and meeting friends, and they're meeting up for dinners, and they're going on holiday, and but also more importantly, there is a cost of living crisis going on right now with inflation around the world. This is not just it's not just in the US. This is happening everywhere, where the costs of everything from the pandemic, along with the current crisis in Ukraine, all these different things, they're all bringing together and causing a storm where people are now going, do I need 7 different streaming services? I'm not home enough to worry. I'm out. I'm not at home working from home anymore, where you might have been watching it. That's a whole other thing there. It's so much has changed, but it feels like Netflix had a readjustment. But that readjustment, I feel, is going to have a ripple across everywhere, because Disney might start going, we need to do more. Maybe we don't want to go all in as much onto our streaming services. We want to keep the linear ones rolling. I mean, I think they should be almost like a dual system, where you're using them much more like the guys that have got cable on streaming, and the ones on streaming haven't got cable. So you need to look at them as different, same customer, just using a different platform. And then you've got theatrical releases. I think Disney, they've been very open about staying with them. I think they're probably going to stay with them a bit more, because I feel it's like Encanto. You can make 200, 300 million before it's hit streaming, and there's more value in it. They've made the money back on cinema tickets, and then they put it to streaming, and the numbers are still good if they do it quick enough. I don't know. It's just, you can definitely feel a big thing as well is how much money they're investing in content. This chasing subscribers. the rate that the new series have been dropping is just too high. I mean, the trouble is with Disney is it's here in the UK we're in that different situation. I'm looking at that list like we talked about earlier of like we're getting Pistol, we're getting this, we're getting that, we're getting this, we're getting that. Well, that's a full system. In the US, it's still splintered so much. So it doesn't look, well, Disney Plus is only getting 3 shows. They can't cut down anymore. Well, actually, if you put them all together, you've got enough to give a good month's a solid. But the way that Netflix has been dropping stuff just isn't sustainable.
That and Netflix in the last couple of years has also been drawing a lot from international content. Obviously, they've got a very big Korean library. They've got a pretty big Indian library. And they've been using that to shore up in between the originals. Like I know Stranger Things is getting a lot of buzz. They dropped the season 4 trailer and such last week, and that's a huge one. That is one of their huge titles. But if you look at their weekly drops, it's a lot of licensed stuff that they picked up, and that's nothing wrong with that. Just to be clear, a lot of those shows are really good. Like we got Squid Games out of that, and I think Kingdom came out of that, things like that. But you know, there is a difference between content you make yourself and content that you get licensed. And Disney Plus will have the same thing, especially as, you know, as it Japanese show just started off in Japan this week, and it'll be coming here eventually. Things like that. And they're judged differently.
I always look at like the international stuff a little bit differently, because to me it's more a case of you're creating it to create a buzz in that particular region. So if you're making a show for Japan or you're making a show for Latin America, whatever, and it's the same thing with Netflix, is they're making it for that region. And it's along the lines of, well, we've got it, we own the rights to it, well, we might as well give it to everybody else. And I mean a bit like, well, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you want to kind of do that, of spread that content out? If you own it, you might as well do it. But I don't look at like those international shows as a way, okay, well, they've dropped 4 seasons this year of new shows. No, they don't count. They don't count to me.
Well, especially when we're talking about, say, Star Plus originals, where it's, you know, some of the things on the May list that you're going through, it's like, oh yeah, season 1's coming out over here in the UK, and season 3 will be starting in the US, later this month. And kind of like, well, there's a big difference between season 1 and season 3 in terms of excitement, right?
Yeah, it's like, but also this week, and this is another big one, CNN launched a streaming service, I think it was about 3 weeks ago, called CNN Plus. And it's already been cut. Discovery obviously took over Warner Brothers a couple of weeks ago, and they've decided to just cut off CNN Plus overnight. That's been cut off. They're closing it down, and it didn't even last 3 weeks. I don't think it was. I mean, there's jokes about it being like quibbly, but I don't look at it like CNN Plus wasn't a failure. In the fact, it wasn't a failure. It was just Discovery never would have launched it. Discovery didn't want it to be launched. I don't think there was a lot, because of the legal reasons they couldn't talk about stuff properly. I do feel like Warner Brothers shouldn't have released CNN Plus like a week before the deal went through. They should have just been like, you know what? I mean, they spent millions on it. It's almost like, do we rush it to get it out because we've spent millions on this project and we want it out there? It just looks so bad. But then Discovery can turn around and go, well, we didn't want it. We don't think it's going to make any money. We're not going to invest any more money into it. And we want to incorporate this into HBO Max content. Because I think live news and stuff, I mean, you know, we already see it. I think Hulu's got ABC News live, like live stream. I think they should do that on Disney Plus internationally, just, you know, using its news content a little bit better. I watch news all the time. It would actually be quite interesting to have like ABC News, like a live stream just rolling through Disney Plus constantly with global news. I think that would be great. And yeah, you can see how things are shifting. The smaller streaming services. I mean, yeah, CNN Plus didn't last a month. I mean, that is quite just a mess.
What's interesting is that a lot of the stories about it tend to frame it as, oh, it was a failure of a launch, right? Yeah. But the fact is, we don't know. I don't think they ever publish numbers of subscribers or how much. They never will. But you know, that's how it's pitched, or at least the headlines very carefully imply that it was so bad, that it was so unpopular that it didn't do anywhere. But the reality is what you described. It's like Discovery taking over and like, we don't actually want this app. Please get rid of it now before it becomes a harder thing to get rid of. Yeah. And it's entirely possible that CNN was making their money back on it, and it's entirely possible that it did bomb. We just don't know. But it is a little, disingenuous to be implying, oh, they pulled the plug because the launch was just so terrible. It's like, was it? We don't know.
Yeah, and also it's like the number of what it was going to pull in was always going to be harder because of the type of content it was. I think a lot of the content will probably end up shifting over to CNN, or it will go over to HBO Max when they've kind of sorted out what they're doing. You can see that Warner Brothers Discovery are realigning what they're doing. With all their streaming services, I think we're going to see much more consolidation. I think there's going to be there'll be more ahead. I think like Cinemax and Boomerang, there's a few other ones that they've got hanging around. We're probably all going to get integrated at some point. And I think that's what's going to happen with Disney. I think you're going to see the same thing that's happening over there with these streaming services coming in and going, look, there's only so many people will subscribe to, and you need to have almost the streaming service becomes this own bundle, because it's like, well, you're offering so much in there that it's more valuable to us now. I think you are getting to that point of you're going to have Netflix, Amazon, Disney, HBO Max, and then there's maybe room for the fifth one of Peacock / Paramount Plus or so. There's only going to be so many, and I feel like we're already seeing Disney lining up the pieces with Hulu and stuff. But it just makes sense on so many different levels to have this consolidation, because the market is contracting after the pandemic, and also money's being tighter. For example, here in the UK, there was a report out that the churn rate in the UK drastically increased in the last 3 months. And it's like, how much of that is content? How much of it is people going, the restrictions coming to the end here? How much is due to budgets? Of like, oh, well, more people bouncing between the services, but also if you're just not at home, or if you've the cost of everything's just skyrocketing. If there's a choice between putting your heating on or Disney Plus, you need to put your heating on.
Well, hopefully not your heating at this point, because I don't know about you guys, it's starting to warm up very quickly over here. I didn't realize that was just an example. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of churn rate for a lot of them. And I think the scenario that I've mentioned a couple times where people will rotate between streaming services is probably what we're going to start seeing more and more of. So you subscribe to Netflix, you watch the stuff you wanted to watch on Netflix, you watch Stranger Things season 4, and then you're like, okay, I've watched what I wanted to watch on Netflix, cancel that sub, let's go over to Disney Plus, we'll watch the Book of Boba Fett and Moon Knight, because I didn't have it when those came out. Okay, we're done with that. All right, let's go over to Paramount Plus and watch the Star Trek and Halo stuff, and so on and so on.
But then there's the other side of things. I think once all the ad tiers start kicking in, because with HBO Max hasn't got its ad tier yet. I don't think it's launched just yet.
I don't know.
I know like Paramount and HBO, they're all adding in these lower cost tiers, and I think you're going to end up, there's that other option of, you might go, we'll just cut down to the ad version, and you can have 3 or 4 of them with ads, and you can have all of it. And I think that's going to be, or you might be like, well, I don't watch that one less, so I might drop that one down to ad tier because I don't watch it as much as this one. It's like me, for example. I could quite easily be like with Disney Plus going, I watch enough of it that I'm going to do the ad-free version because that's fine. But Netflix, I don't watch a lot of it. My wife watches a lot more of it. I could drop it, but I could quite easily drop down to ads because it's like, I don't really watch enough of it. And that's the same kind of, I think we are going to see that shift. And I think that's why Disney Plus, when they can merge stuff, but if they've got that ad tier, it's also extra revenue. There's that other thing as well of some money coming in from different services. The live streams, they can start incorporating ads into them. There's a lot of talk right now with all the sports, because pretty much every network seems to have a different night of NFL. Amazon's picking up stuff. They're all picking up a night each. Disney's got Monday nights. So yeah, I think you're really starting to see this big. I could see Monday Night Football on Disney Plus as a live stream. I could see that happening in the fall as well, of just like offering this different kind of content.
Yeah, and as much as I don't like the ad tiers in general, I realize they will enable people to be able to see this, you can't. But it also on the Disney side or the producer side, the ads are a much better measure of how profitable a show is, because it gets kind of fuzzy with streaming. You can look at how many people are viewing something, but it's hard to determine did they subscribe for this reason, or are they watching it because they're already subscribed, that kind of thing. Whereas if you get movie theater revenue, you went and saw Turning Red in the theater, that's what you spent money on. You didn't get a ticket to Turning Red and then walk over and watch the Batman. It doesn't work that way. Ad tier gives them a much better number to go, well, we broadcast this football game on Monday night and we made this much money with ad tier revenue. That means it was worth it for us to continue broadcasting these because it's making its money back, or it's very close to it, one or the other.
I think we are really going to see a big shift. And I think what's happened this past week with Netflix is, I would say, it's almost like, okay, we now know where the ceiling is. We know where the top end of subscribers are globally. Disney's still got a lot of countries they're launching, and they can keep building in it, and they'll want to keep that revenue stream running every month because they're going to get used to that revenue stream. 200 million people paying, $10 a month. That's quite a nice bit of chunk change dropping in, but they're going to have to spend the money to make it. I think we might not see as many big, I think like Stranger Things is like 30 million an episode. And, like altogether, that series is like 300. And there's that point where the people are going, these shows are just too expensive. They're not worth this amount of money. There's also been a lot of other talk, really, like with Netflix and stuff, of going, right, okay, what are the characters? What are the brands from Netflix? Like Squid Game, Stranger Things, Umbrella Academy. And then you're starting to like, but with the other, with NBC and with Warner and with Paramount, you can do that a lot easier. Amazon's harder, but then they've even managed to slide in now with MGM. They got James Bond, and they've got their own little stuff going on now that they can build on.
And they've got Lord of the Rings, and they've got the Wheel of Time, and they've got some franchises they can work with.
I'm really enjoying Reacher. I'm really enjoying the Reacher right now. I'm about halfway through the first season. I'm really enjoying that one.
It's on my list. I haven't seen that one yet. But also, Netflix, that was a complaint that a lot of consumers have, is that they keep killing off their brands before they have a chance to grow. If you read the comments threads about Netflix, a lot of them are like, maybe you should stop canceling shows after 2 seasons or ending them on cliffhangers. And I'm sure that there are very valid financial reasons why they're doing that. But, when that is the perception that people have, that you're not going to stand behind your brands, it becomes very hard to launch things.
It's also I think it's tricky, like with the free season rule of like, ultimately, like when a show goes to the 3rd season, it's not bringing in new viewers the same way. So you have season 4, season 5. It's like Grey's Anatomy now, like season 18. It's got to be much harder to attract a new person into the show now, because they're like, what do you mean it's 350 episodes? Yeah, no, I can't jump into it. Binge watching helps, get people caught up on it. But also, you need the people like that about those big TV shows that run the familiarity of just having it. I think Marvel are in that good place right now where they can, I've said about it before, where they can basically do like, I don't know, like they can do hashtag, you can do an extra tag. So you can go, we're not doing Moon Knight season 2. No, we're doing Moon Knight, Greystone or something like that. And suddenly it's a new show, but it's still a continuation. So they've got that advantage. Whereas I think, and also there's been a lot of talk as well with Netflix of the days of the golden, like, oh, come over here, have a TV show, you get a TV show, you get a TV show. And now it's going to be like, yeah, you need to prove that this is going to be worth it. They say that, that's really going to have an impact on the whole market. Netflix ain't going to be coming in anymore, just outbidding everyone to get all the talent, and then realizing you can get the talent, but if you don't actually support the content, it doesn't work.
Well, they also need to give money to the rest of the production staff as well, because like another thing you hear frequently is like, oh, the movies get the talent, but then they don't really spend a lot on the writing, so you get these cookie cutter movies and things like that. But when they do let the writers kind of have some free reign, you get stuff like BoJack Horseman, you get things like Stranger Stranger Things and these shows, which end up being wildly popular and generate buzz, but they don't seem to be focusing on that side of things as much anymore.
But also as well, you can have a creator creating a lot of stuff that might be interesting, but if the audience isn't interested, it doesn't work. And sometimes the executives that are guiding the shows and the bosses at the top of the networks and stuff are going, yeah, this is a bit like too quirky. It's not going to hit a main. But also, I think you're going to see a big shift with Netflix with that whole binge drop, because every other streamer has gone, yeah, that system's not really working for us. We're not, we get 2 months out of a new, we're spending this much money on a show, and we get 2 months of buzz about it. Netflix gets a weekend. It's just not sustainable. It wasn't sustainable.
No, you get the occasional show like Squid Games, which will keep the water cooler talk going for a while. I know that was, people were buzzing about that for a while. The Queen's Gambit was buzzing for quite some time. But yeah, for the most part, the series drops, people binge watch it over the weekend, they talk about it on Monday, and then next Monday they're talking about another show, and you really don't get that long-term return on these shows.
Well, also as well, I think that whole binge system, it's like younger audiences tend to binge. Well, generally younger audiences have more time. The older audiences don't have, they don't turn around and go, right, here's 22 episodes of Grey's Anatomy and an hour, it's just too much. You can't, someone, an older audience just isn't going to be able to consume that. It's just too overwhelming. But an hour a week, it's doable.
Even shows that I was super excited for on Netflix, Daredevil and Jessica Jones and things like that, it would normally take me several weeks to watch them, even though they all dropped at once. And I know there are people who watched like the entire season of Daredevil in one day. It sat down and watched for 13 hours straight, but
it's right.
Like I can't do that. And I really loved like Daredevil season 1, but the impulse to watch 5 episodes back to back just doesn't.
I mean, it's like that kind of thing. Like, if it's a really good show, we might be able to do it over a weekend of like 3 or 4 episodes a day. Mm-hmm. But that's about, it's just really, I think as a whole, like Netflix has really had, I would say they've had that big slap. The whole streaming market now and it's going to impact on all of them, of just like, look, this is just not this streaming just giants of, it's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Like, no, there's a limit to what you're going to be able to do. There's a limit to what you can spend a year on content. You're not going to, it's like Disney Plus is going to hit a point, they've said about, they will reach that capacity. Is at any point them having a Marvel and a Star Wars show dropping on different days or at the same time? Is it just like, well, actually, we're just wasting money? It's good for us as a consumer, but from their point of view, it's like, yeah, no, this is not. I personally feel like dropping that and a National Geographic and some lifestyle stuff and the Kardashians and this, there's choice. Different people are having different things. But to me, like Marvel and Star Wars are just way too tightly knit.
But we don't know. That's the thing, is we're not really sure what kind of monetary considerations they have. Because, okay, at some point they will stop growing. Obviously, that's just inevitable. You hit a wall at some point. But that doesn't mean that the current subscribers aren't paying their subscription. Yeah. You're still bringing in a monthly rate for the subscribers. And if you're at 200 million or 150 million, that's not a small amount of money.
Yeah. And you got to keep them engaged and keep that money coming in.
Right. So, they might not do a show like Obi-Wan again, because that's got to be a very expensive show for them to do with the talent that they brought in and the way they're basically treating it as a movie that's been split up into parts rather than as a television show. You might not see something like that again, but things like The Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, and Moon Knight will definitely continue seeing stuff at that caliber.
Yeah, it's just. I think it's been a real like wake up across the bow of the streaming, was Netflix taking a massive hit, and like I said, it is a ripple effect, because that is affecting. There's going to be board. There's probably already been meetings at high levels of like, because they are the ones that everyone was looking at and going, right, this is what we're trying to do again, and they're going, right, okay. Well, what if we can only hit 300 million is the top max global subscribers? I mean, you look at like people say, well, there's 8 billion people in the world. Yeah, but you take away the kids. If you've got how it's per household. I mean, this whole thing like with cutting back on sharing accounts, because I think Netflix is about 100 million accounts are currently being shared. And that's why they wanted to go, you know what, you guys are all watching our stuff here. You can pay us that. And it's like, yeah, but you guys have been, you've encouraged this. It's basically like, like if we went into the supermarket and they gave us free stuff every time we walked in, a big basket full of food. Here you go, give that, and like, well, and like you do that for 10 years, and then one day you go in there, where's my bat? Oh, you want me to pay for it? Well,
that's
Netflix hasn't got enough people hooked, I don't think, because I don't think the content's there.
Well, that's the thing, is the content did used to be there though, right? That was the big hook for Netflix in the beginning, was they were the only game in town, and they had all the big movies. They had all of the big originals, Daredevil. I remember when they announced Daredevil and people were just going nuts. Like, this is a huge gain for them. And, they would be the platform. The companies would go, okay, we released this movie. It's been out on Blu-ray. Here's our top tier movie. Go ahead and throw it on the streaming platform. Just give us some money for it. But now everyone else has gotten the game too. And so, Daredevil is no longer on Netflix. The big movies from HBO are no longer on Netflix. And it doesn't seem like they've had a viable plan to make up for this loss of content. No. Because we talk about how they don't have much content now. They did. They had a lot of content, and that's what made them popular. And also the fact that they were a one-stop shop. They made it easy. You wanted. I mean, they killed to watch movies.
Let's be honest. They killed Blockbuster.
They killed Blockbuster, and now they're kind of making the same mistakes. But now that they are no longer the one-stop shop, people look at it and go, well, HBO Max has more of the things that I want than you guys do. So I'm sorry. Yeah. We've had many, many good years together, but I got to go over to HBO Max now.
I'm really intrigued at what HBO Max is about to become, because it's like you guys are really kind of, you're adding all that Discovery content in there and some sports. It's suddenly going to become a lot more I think they need to sort out their brands a bit more and streamline a little bit, rather than having like TV channels as a brand. Like there's nothing, it doesn't mean anything, especially to me, because that's one of the big things for me. Like I looked the other day, I went on to like the new Discovery. I'm going to bring it up just because Warner Brothers Discovery, and like it's like, well, what is some of this stuff? It doesn't mean anything, because it's like a TV channel. And it's like, but it doesn't. It's like, I'm going to bring this one up here now.
It's more of an archaic way of looking at things, though, right? Because especially when when we were growing up, and even before that, you identified stuff by the channel it was on. I would turn to Fox in the morning so I could watch my cartoons, and I'd have Nickelodeon on at a certain time because that's when like Doug and Rugrats would come on. I would turn to Disney Channel after I got back to school because that's where Rescue Rangers were. And there was that mentality of you would identify what you wanted to watch by what channel it was on.
Yeah.
But these days there's thousands of channels, and channel identity basically doesn't exist anymore.
Well, I mean, it's like for me as a Brit, because I mean, it's like TBS. I mean, I think it's got American Dad on, and that's a network. I've got no idea what that is. I've got no idea what that is.
It is a syndication channel. It's not even their own property. They just buy the rights to show stuff over and over again. And so if you want to binge watch Law and Order or Family Guy or something, that's where you go.
Yeah, but it's like I said, like to me, that's not really necessarily. It's like ID. What's ID?
I actually don't know what ID is. I think it's a crime channel.
So TNT to me was like, I used to watch WCW on it. That was the last time I watched TNT, and that was 27 years ago. When last time, I know it's old movies, but for me it was always WCW. So that was the only channel I could watch that on. And I'm like, that's not a name I have seen in like 20 plus years.
Honestly, I haven't either too, but I do remember watching shows on it because it's like, oh yeah, TNT, that's the channel I turned to at such and such time. I could see this working for them, but they need to consolidate stuff because, like, you've got channels that basically do the same thing. They just have slightly different content. I find it funny that Cinemax is on the HBO Go, but
yeah, I mean, it's like to me. I mean, I imagine like Cinemax is going to be likely to be. I would imagine will be soaked up at some point into it. It makes a lot of sense.
A lot of
I
these
mean,
will get merged.
yeah, I mean things like Boomerang and Cartoon Network. Is there a difference in the kind of content of what it is? I don't know.
At least back in the day, there was. Cartoon Network was more aimed at younger audiences until it got to Adult Swim, which was supposed to be the more mature content. And like these other channels, they had their niche, but the niches have become fuzzy over the years.
This is the kind of thing to me of like, and I'll say the same thing about Disney. I mean, I think Freeform is a classic example of a brand that no longer exists anymore. I feel like the mix, like what I feel like Search, like FX, these are brands they could do with some merging. I feel like FX and 20th Century should kind of in some way, do we need all these different brands and networks and stuff? So I definitely feel like there's going to be some consolidation there as well, but definitely feel with Warner Brothers Discovery there needs to be a little bit more of and I always felt that even with HBO Max. So you like look on the go, and they're like, look at our brands. I'm like, your brands don't mean much.
Well,
it's just like, it's like that's not a strong brand of like, Discovery always kind of fits alongside like National Geographic. There's like I remember walking through an airport and seeing a Discovery store you'd be walking. I remember walking through Sydney, Australia, and seeing the Warner Brothers store and going in there and stuff. Of it had, you knew what you were getting when you walked in. But some of them were just like.
I think they do serve some purpose because, like, you might want to go on HBO Max because they've got a particular collection of shows. They've got Adult Swim, and you really loved Adult Swim. Being able to see that banner, okay, these are the things that are nostalgic for me when I was growing up, or things like that. But I do think that the value of them is much lower than it used to be. There is still value. They're not completely useless, and but they do need to consolidate them because there are a lot of them that are.
I mean, it's like to me as well. Like it's like Turner Classic Movies. Like, well, isn't that just Warner Brothers? Just Warner Brothers movies. It just doesn't. It's like calling 20th Century Studio films by a different name and like going, well, they're still old. They're just old movies,
right? But the Turner Classic is supposed to, or at least used to, focus on a specific subset of movies. It's the movies that your grandparents grew up with or influenced modern movies, whereas WB movies are supposed to be 70s, 80s, 90s, something like that, and TCW is supposed to be or classic movies are supposed to be these older the old song and dance movies, Singing in the Rain, Casablanca, and things like that.
Yeah, it's just very interesting to see how all of this worked out. I just looked at the time, so we're going to do a quick bit just before we head off on this week's episode of Moon Knight. Just have a quick chat before we head off. But as a whole, as the streaming wars have really shifted this week, we're really seeing a massive shift in how that's come together. But final thing of the day, the latest episode of Moon Knight. What did you think of it?
Excuse me, that's what I thought of when I coughed. No, it was a very good episode, kind of a fun little rearrangement of the pieces and shifting of where the show's going to be next week. I know you'd mentioned like that kind of shift in the ending and cliffhanger ending, and you're like, because you saw this weeks ago.
This is the thing. I watched this episode about 5 weeks ago, right? And this is where I've been left hanging for the last 5 weeks while everybody's been catching. And it's just been like that last scene with the hippo, and you're like, what? Okay, like what's happening next? Like, I'm desperate to see what happens on Wednesday because I've literally just been sat for 5 weeks waiting to find out what happens next. And like you guys don't know how long we've been.
Well, I know exactly how long you tell me every week, but it's interesting because the character that they introduced there at the end is not in the comics, as far as I know. Granted, given the setting of the ending, it might be in one of the comics that's come out since I stopped reading. But as far as I know, Tawaret is not a Marvel character up to this point. So this is a brand new character for an actual Egyptian god. They're the goddess of fertility and rebirth and things like that. But new ground for Marvel. So let's see how that goes.
It's going to be interesting. I mean, there's a whole thing as well of like, is Jake or Jack in the other? Yeah, is he in the other sarcophagus? In the tomb and stuff, and is he trying to get out? And it just was just like, what's going on? Was any of that real? Did any of it happen? Is that why we didn't have any references to the MCU? Because it didn't happen?
No, I know they're playing a little bit with the "it's all in his head" angle, but I'm pretty sure that this is the fake part. He's kind of in the waiting room for the afterlife, kind of deal. That's why she's showing up. Because her job is either to guide you to rebirth or to bring you down to where you get judged by Anubis and the whole heart feather thing and all that. And presumably this will lead to him getting resurrected again, and leading into the final fights. But I do like they are kind of playing with that whole like Legion mentality. Is it actually happening? Is just in his head? Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like the last 10 minutes, because it was kind of bordering on becoming like Indiana Jones territory of the first like half of the episode, where they're racing around inside of a tomb and fighting some kind of weird monster. And the next minute, it's like, it just, suddenly they're in but it's like that kind of thing. That's not a real insane asylum. That's just too arty. It's too, well, it was just too like, bright. What? Too bright. All the Egyptian artifacts everywhere. It was just like, there's no way that feels real. And obviously, you're the talking hippo.
Well, it's very clearly supposed to be his mindscape. Because everything is focused on things that have happened in the episode. And of course, you can do the reading of it where, the things that are happening because he's drawing,
influenced by that.
He's being influenced by, or like Usual Suspects, where he's narrating the story because he found the postcard that had, this piece on it. But no, I think it's the other direction where he's kind of getting glimpses of important events in his life while he's waiting to be shipped off to whatever the next part of his life or afterlife will be.
Yeah, it's just such a great show. It really is. It is, like I said, it feels so different from everything before, and I know that's a bit cliche with it, but this show, I just can't wait to see what happens in the next 2 episodes. It's just so good, and like this episode, it really was that kind of thing. Like you had the Indiana Jones bit, and then it went into the whole thing inside that in asylum, and you're just like, oh, it just feels so different from that first episode, doesn't it? Where he's running around London, and then he's like running around Egypt, and then now, I can't wait to see what happens. And he's obviously going to have to get this. He's obviously going to have to get Khonshu back to get the suit back in the 6th episode, to have the big fight with Arthur. But yeah,
I'm kind of interested to see how they're going to do that, because Arthur is not being presented as a physical opponent. He's a very mental opponent. So what are they going to do for the big fight? And he might end up with like, a suit of his own coming from the god that he's hunting for. But where do they go with this? There's a lot of different directions they can go. And it's very interesting. It's very cerebral and kind of fun with what's going on there.
Yeah, I'm loving this series. I think it's fantastic. I'm loving the idea of them like really, and there's also fun with having a character I know so little about, because it really does just kind of, it's fresh, it's new. I'm going in a different direction. Moon Knight just looks great. Mr. Knight is fantastic.
It's entertaining.
He's just really cool. So it's just I can't wait. And there's talk about there's Jack's going to have his own costume as well of some kind, and I don't know.
It'll be interesting to see what they do with Jake. There's a couple different directions, and I'm kind of getting the feeling like he might not be on the side of Mark and Steven, actually. So we'll see what comes up from that. Also, I think it'd be great. I don't think it will happen, but I'd love to see Khonshu make an appearance in Thor Love and Thunder, because we are getting gods. But
this is the thing is, you're lining up to the idea of like, is there going to be a crossover with Thor where Gore takes out Khonshu? But I love Khonshu. I think he's such an amazing. I love the voice, that kind of, oh no, the idiot's in charge.
I have to admit, I originally thought I wasn't actually that big on the voice. I didn't think it had enough presence for what you would expect of God, but it has grown on me.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's great. So there we go. So that is this week's episode. Throughout the week, keep an eye, because I've got 2 interviews. We've got the costume designer of Moon Knight and also the cinematographer of Moon Knight. So they'll be coming out. I did those interviews last night, so they'll be coming up in the coming probably in the week ahead. So yeah, so that was a lot of fun talking. You know, it's quite great fun just talking last night to, you know, how they made the suit and, you know, some of the details and stuff and what they had to do and stuff. That was really interesting. So keep an eye out for that. On that note, guys, thank you very much, and we shall see you guys soon. Laters. Thank you very much for watching this video. Make sure you go check us out over at whatsondisneyplus.com. Like, follow, and subscribe. Also, a huge thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon and also on our YouTube channel memberships. And I shall see you guys in another video. Laters.